Imagine a country, right, sitting on $128 billion in missing coal wealth.
Just a staggering amount of money.
Right. And it's a place where the average citizen is grinding it out for maybe $800 a month, while you have this political elite casually flaunting $400,000 homes on social media.
Yeah, the contrast is just jarring.
It really is. And then contrast that with high schoolers spending their entire summer vacations physically plastering and, painting their own crumbling classrooms.
Simply because the government won't do it.
Exactly. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking you on a journey into the heart of Mongolia today.
And it is a fascinating place, really. You have this incredibly passionate, tech-savvy, very young population trying to build a modern future.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're dragging this massive anchor of profound systemic institutional failure.
Right. It's a staggering set of contradictions.
Yeah. So our mission today is to figure out how these two realities exist in the exact same physical space. I mean, how does a nation with so much inherent wealth, deep cultural pride, and just massive human potential end up with a system that feels so fundamentally fractured?
With the big question.
It is. Now, just to be totally upfront with you before we get into the weeds here, we are going to be unpacking some heavily contested data today.
We are.
We're looking at sources and reports alleging massive government corruption, staggering wealth gaps, and systemic breakdowns. So I want to be crystal clear right out of the gate. Our job today isn't to take a political side or, play judge and jury.
Definitely not.
We are simply acting as your guides.
Yeah.
We're impartially unpacking what the investigations, the data, and the source reports are actually claiming, just so you can understand the mechanics of what's happening.
And that framing is essential, I think. Because what we're really examining today is a universal problem. It's just playing out on a massive scale in this specific context. It is that profound tension between a country's theoretical potential, how the machine is supposed to work on paper, and the messy, often very broken reality of its execution.
Okay, let's unpack this. And to do that, I want to start at the absolute ground floor.
Good idea. Keep it grounded.
Exactly. Let's forget about billions of dollars in international borders for a minute. Let's look at mundane, everyday reality. I want to talk about buying a carton of milk.
Carton of milk. I like it.
Because honestly, if you want to understand how a government system fails its people, you really have to look at the tools that are designed to make their lives easier.
Which brings us to Mongolia's value-added tax system, the VAT.
Right.
So there is a standard 10% VAT on goods and services there. And to tackle tax evasion and force businesses out of the shadow economy, the government rolled out a digital solution.
They built an app.
And
the premise sounds brilliant, right? Like, you, as a citizen, go to the store, you buy your groceries, you get a receipt with a QR code, and you just scan it into this government app.
Yep. And when you do that, two things happen. First, you get a 2% cashback reward on your purchase.
Nice little incentive.
Exactly. And second, you get entered into a national lottery funded by the VAT revenue, where you can actually win a significant payout.
Which is pretty clever.
It is. The mechanism here is classic behavioral economics. The government wants to audit retail businesses, but they don't have the manpower to do it manually.
So they outsource it.
Right. They incentivize the entire population to act as decentralized tax auditors. If consumers demand a scannable receipt to get their cash back, well, the store is forced to log the transaction officially.
Yeah, on a whiteboard in a policy meeting, this is an elegant, highly efficient use of technology.
Absolutely, on a whiteboard.
Right, on a whiteboard. But then actual humans have to use it in the real world, and the sources detail this specific case that just perfectly highlights the disconnect here.
The grocery store guy.
Yes. So a citizen goes to claim his tax returns, his cash back, and he is completely denied. His account gets frozen.
Is locked out.
Locked out. And why? Because the government's algorithm flagged his uploaded receipts as suspicious.
And what was this highly suspicious, fraudulent behavior?
He consistently shopped at the exact same grocery store.
I mean, you have to laugh, but it's terrible.
It's ridiculous. What's fascinating here is the sheer blindness of algorithmic governance, right?
Well, what's fascinating here is exactly that. The system's anti-fraud mechanism was likely programmed with a really basic rule. Like, if an account is submitting an incredibly high volume of receipts from a single vendor, flag it as a potential kickback scheme or a manufactured transaction.
So it's applying like global e-commerce fraud logic.
To local reality, yes.
Yes. But it completely ignores human geography. I mean, think about your own life. You probably have a neighborhood bodega or a corner store that is, I don't know, 50 feet from your apartment.
Right, the place you go to every single day.
Exactly. You go there for bread, you go there for coffee, you go there because it's convenient. This guy wasn't running a criminal syndicate. He was just walking to the closest shop to his house.
Yeah, he was just buying his daily milk.
It's like your credit card company freezing your account for fraud because you bought your morning coffee at the same cafe 3 days in a row, and then they refuse to unlock it. It's infuriating.
It really is. And it demonstrates how policy design that fails to account for normal, predictable human behavior doesn't just create a minor inconvenience.
No, it causes real frustration.
Worse than that, it actively breeds public cynicism. I mean, the citizen is trying to participate in the state's transparency initiative, and the state's own technology penalizes him for having a daily routine.
I really have to push back on the designers of systems like this. I mean, if a government expects to build public trust, how can it deploy technology that treats basic loyalty to a neighborhood shop as a punishable offense?
You're entirely right.
It just feels like the system isn't serving the people. The people are just feeding data to the system.
That is the exact friction point. And if we follow that logic, it sets up our next major issue perfectly. Well, if the government's digital brain lacks the nuance to process a daily milk run without glitching, what happens when we look at the physical infrastructure?
Oh, I see where you're going.
Yeah. What happens when that same bureaucratic blindness is applied to something critical, like keeping public schools from falling apart?
Well, you get a complete vacuum. And when institutions fail to provide the bare minimum, someone else has to step into the gap.
Right. Nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. And in Mongolia right now, that someone is increasingly the youth. Take a look at what the reports say happened recently at public school number 84.
This is such a wild story.
It really is. You have a group of graduating high school students who looked around at their school environment, peeling paint, broken fixtures, totally worn out interiors.
Things the state should be fixing.
Things the state is legally supposed to fix. But they realized a hard truth. The state wasn't coming to fix it. So these teenagers voluntarily spent their own summer break redesigning and physically renovating the inside of their school.
I mean, it is a massive display of civic duty.
Huge.
They wanted to leave a functional, dignified space for the younger kids coming up behind them. But the public reaction to this was incredibly divided.
Which is so surprising to me.
It reveals a really deep generational fracture in the country.
Yeah, because you would think everyone would applaud these kids, right? Like, great job, way to take initiative.
You would think so.
But a lot of adults, specifically from older generations, were looking at these teenagers covered in drywall dust and paint, and their reaction was, why on earth are children doing the government's job?
Yeah. And to understand that reaction, you have to look at the mechanics of Mongolia's history.
Right.
The older generations came of age under a socialist system where the state was the ultimate all-encompassing provider.
The social contract was very clear.
Crystal clear. The government builds the schools, the government maintains the schools, the government provides for the community, period.
So to them, this isn't a feel-good story.
Not at all. To an older citizen, seeing teenagers having to crowdsource and execute their own school maintenance isn't a heartwarming story of resilience. It is a dystopian indicator of a state that has completely abandoned its fundamental duties.
That makes total sense when you frame it that way. I mean, put yourself in those kids' shoes for a second. Imagine spending your summer vacation, the few months of freedom you get out of the year, plastering the walls of your high school.
I certainly wouldn't have done it at that age.
Me neither. I look at this and I'm honestly torn. On one hand, you have this incredible, inspiring DIY spirit, but on the other hand, it's a glaring red flag. If teenagers have to rebuild their own public institutions by hand, what exactly is the state doing with its resources?
Well, it is the ultimate symptom of a transitional society. The youth are adopting this highly proactive grassroots approach because they have internalized a harsh reality.
That no one is coming to save them.
Basically, the old socialist safety net is gone, but a functioning modern democratic safety net hasn't actually replaced it. So they are operating in a void.
And here is the terrifying part of that void. That DIY attitude is inspiring when we are talking about painting classrooms. But the absence of state presence and protection becomes incredibly dangerous when it spills over into social dynamics.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when the institutions meant to regulate behavior and protect the vulnerable are just absent, toxic social hierarchies rush in to fill the space.
Exactly. When wealth and political connections begin to dictate power on a day-to-day level, and the police or school administrations fail to intervene, you get a predatory environment.
Yeah.
We are seeing a rising income inequality in Mongolia that is violently filtering down into the youth. It is resulting in severe bullying and violence based purely on status.
And there is a specific incident detailed in the reports from early January that perfectly illustrates the darkest edge of this reality.
The mall incident.
Yes. It took place near the Shangri-La Center, which is a major, very high-end shopping mall in the capital city of Ulaanbaatar.
Very wealthy area.
Right. And according to the reports, a group of 10 to 20 teenagers surrounded and attacked a young girl. The incident involved physical violence, extreme public humiliation, and verbal threats of sexual violence.
It was a horrific display of pack violence.
Truly.
But what makes this case a glaring indictment of the broader system is how we even know about it in the first place.
Yeah, this part is wild.
There were no public surveillance cameras in that specific area. The only proof that this attack happened was recorded and shared online by the perpetrators themselves.
They literally filmed their own crime. And when investigators finally dug into this, they found that some of these perpetrators had over 400 similar photos and videos of abuse stored on their devices.
Over 400.
Over 400. And here's where it gets really interesting. And I mean that in the darkest, most frustrating sense possible.
Yeah.
The victim's mother pointed out that a virtually identical case of abuse had been submitted to the police back in late 2025.
And what happened to it?
It was completely dismissed by the authorities within 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I have to jump in here and challenge the institutional narrative. You don't accidentally accumulate a digital archive of 400 pieces of documented assault.
No, you don't.
That means you have done this hundreds of times. How does a group of teenagers operate a literal fight club at a luxury mall without law enforcement noticing?
That's a great question.
To me, that doesn't look like a police force struggling with low funding. That looks like a police force purposefully turning a blind eye because of who these kids' parents are.
This raises an important question about the actual mechanics of impunity. How does it function?
Great.
Well, in highly stratified societies, law enforcement leadership is often appointed by or directly beholden to the political and economic elite.
So they can't bite the hand that feeds them.
Exactly. Arresting the child of a powerful minister or a mining magnate is essentially career suicide for a local police officer.
Wow.
So when a serious assault case is dismissed in 2 weeks and teenagers feel so untouchable that they hoard evidence of their own violence, it sends a chilling societal message that the rules don't apply to them.
Right. The law is a suggestion for the rich and a weapon against the poor.
Kids learn exactly what they observe. If they look at the adult world and see that wealth literally buys freedom from consequence, of course they will replicate that exact dynamic on the streets.
Precisely. The impunity at the youth level isn't occurring in a vacuum. It is a direct mirror of the impunity being modeled at the highest levels of society.
It all trickles down.
It does. To understand why a wealthy teenager feels untouchable at the Shangri-La Center, we have to look at where their family's wealth comes from in the first place.
We have to follow the money. We have to zoom out from the streets of Ulaanbaatar and look at the macroeconomic reality.
We do?
Because to understand the failure of the police or the underfunding of public school number 84, you have to understand the sheer scale of wealth that is being extracted from this country.
Right. So let's look at that. Mongolia's economy is heavily anchored in vast natural resources, particularly coal and oil. Because of this, they are deeply tethered to global geopolitics. When tensions rise globally, say conflicts involving the U.S. and Iran or shipping disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, the global supply of energy is threatened.
And what happens? Prices skyrocket.
Exactly.
So if you are a country sitting on massive reserves of coal, a spike in global energy prices should theoretically be a golden ticket.
It should be a massive windfall.
That wealth should be flooding the national treasury. It should be funding state-of-the-art schools, modernizing those digital VAT apps, and paying for well-trained independent police forces.
That is the architectural blueprint we talked about at the beginning. But let's look at the actual numbers reported in our sources.
Let's hear them.
The entry-level salary for a citizen in Mongolia is around 1.3 million tugrik, which is roughly $400 a month.
$400 a month.
Yep. The average salary sits at about $800 a month.
Yeah.
Even the higher range of normal professional salaries caps out around $1,300 a month.
I want you to really hold those numbers in your head. $400 to $1,300 a month.
It's not a lot.
Not at all. Because while the average citizen is making that, the sources note that political elites are publicly flaunting homes worth $300,000 to $400,000.
Yeah.
They are driving luxury imported SUVs that cost just as much, and they are posting it all over social media.
Out in the open.
I'm not an economist, but the math is aggressively broken. How do you acquire a $400,000 house on a public servant's salary in an economy where the average person takes home $800 a month?
Well, you don't. Not legally.
Right.
And the mechanism behind this wealth gap was blown wide open during the 2022 coal scandal.
Which is huge.
It stands as one of the most staggering corruption cases in the region's history.
And again, to remind you, we are just looking at the mechanics of what the investigations revealed in these reports.
Correct.
So how do you actually steal a mountain of coal? You don't just put it in your pockets.
No, it's a paperwork crime. The investigations show that coal exports crossing the border into China were being systematically underreported through double invoicing.
Okay, break that down for us.
So the official price, the one logged in the Mongolian government ledgers for tax purposes, was recorded at $50 per ton.
Okay, $50.
But the actual market price that the coal was being sold for across the border was $195 per ton.
Wow. So the physical coal moved, but the paper trail was completely fractured.
Yes. That $145 difference per ton was allegedly vanishing into offshore accounts and private pockets.
That adds up fast.
Unbelievably fast. The initial estimates of this misappropriation were around 40 trillion tuigriks, which is roughly $11 billion.
11 billion, which is already insane.
It is. But as the investigations deepened, and they looked at a decade of off-book exports, the suggested true scale of the missing wealth reached up to 440 trillion tuigriks.
Wait, 440 trillion?
Yes. That is approximately $128 billion.
$128 billion. I know what you are probably thinking right now. Wait a second. Mongolia's entire official GDP is only around $15 to $20 billion a year. How can $128 billion go missing?
It's hard to wrap your head around.
And that is exactly the point. This wasn't a one-time bank heist. This was a systematic bleeding of potential value, capital flight, and off-the-books extraction occurring over many years.
Decades, really.
Yeah, it dwarfs the official GDP precisely because it was kept entirely out of the official economy. Let me give you an analogy to make this physical because the numbers are just too big.
Go for it.
Imagine you own a skyscraper and you hire a property manager to sell it. They dismantle the building brick by brick and ship it out the back door. Every time a truck leaves, the security guard logs it as a single pebble.
Right.
When they are done, they hand you $50,000 and say, well, that's all it was worth. Meanwhile, they secretly pocket the other $150 million.
It's a perfect analogy.
And this is the part that truly breaks the social contract. When the property manager gets caught red-handed, when the ledgers are exposed, absolutely nothing happens to them.
Nothing at all.
The reports note that despite the staggering economy-breaking scale of this $128 billion scandal, few, if any, major figures have been held meaningfully accountable.
Yeah, many of the key players continue to live entirely freely, enjoying their wealth.
As a citizen, how long can you sustain that level of blatant systemic theft before you just stop believing in the rules altogether?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the coal scandal is the keystone that explains everything else we've discussed today.
How so?
You asked at the beginning how a country with so much potential ends up with a fractured system. This is the mechanism. And again, just looking neutrally at what the reports outline, the massive gains from the global energy market are being extracted and concentrated among a small, insulated group of political and economic elites.
So it never reaches the ground floor.
Exactly. That $128 billion isn't going into the VAT cashback system. It's not buying paint for public school number 84.
Right.
And it is certainly not funding the independent law enforcement needed to protect vulnerable kids at the Shangri-La Center. The wealth is privatized, the profits are hidden, and the resulting societal decay is dumped squarely on the shoulders of the public.
So what does this all mean? We have covered a lot of ground today.
We really have.
We started with a digital VAT app that punishes a guy just for shopping in his own neighborhood. we looked at the inspiring yet deeply troubling reality of kids giving up their summers to fix their own crumbling schools.
Yep.
We examined the horrifying consequences of impunity, where rich teenagers document their own violence because they know the system works for them, not against them.
Mm-hmm.
And it all culminated in a $128 billion shadow economy, where the elites simply walked away with the nation's geological wealth.
It means Mongolia is standing at a profound crossroads. It is a country caught in a tug-of-war between two incredibly powerful forces. On one side, you have the heavy, entrenched anchor of weak institutional accountability, structural nepotism, and systemic corruption.
And on the other side,
Pulling against that, you have a highly motivated, passionate youth population that possesses a rich cultural identity and a deep, deep desire for a functional future.
which leaves me with a thought I want you to really mull over today. We opened by talking about architectural blueprints and the social contract.
Right.
In a post-socialist state, the old deal was that the government provided everything. That deal is dead.
Very dead.
Now we are seeing a passionate, tech-savvy, younger generation in Mongolia that is being forced to rebuild the social contract entirely from scratch.
Not themselves.
Exactly. They are already willing to physically rebuild their own schools with their bare hands. They are already using the internet to crowdsource justice and expose the exact abuses that their own police forces try to bury.
Yeah.
So, look, 10 years down the line, what happens when this exact DIY generation, a generation that has never relied on the state for anything but grief, finally comes of age?
That's the real question.
What happens when they inevitably replace the aging political elites who built and benefited from those corrupt blueprints? Will these young people use their tools to completely dismantle the machine and build a new, transparent system? Or, as they gain power, will they slowly realize how profitable the old system is and simply let themselves be absorbed by it? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you, and we'll see you next time.